going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, we're going to recap a lot of the things that Joe Schoen and Brian Dable had to say in the press conference directly after the season. Came out today around noon. I was working. I was able to listen to it live on WFN. And if you want to watch it in its entirety, it's on the Giants YouTube channel. I think it's about 36 minutes in length. I thought about playing it, but then I said to myself, the video is just going to be way too long. So I'll take out some of the quotes, but you're always going to get better context when you see it in video. But I'll break down some of the quotes and how I interpreted it based off the way that it was answered. Of course, a lot of questions that us as fans want to hear were asked, mainly questions about Daniel Jones, how the New York Giants plan to handle free agency, Julian Love, Saquon Barkley, outside free agents, the draft, so on and so forth. So I was able to pick through, I think, about probably the 15 most interesting and probably important questions that I thought were asked today from Dan Salamone on the New York Giants website. And I'll give my opinion based off some of the things that Joe Schoen had to say. But not a lot of surprises here for me. And this offseason, I expect the New York Giants, and I think this is kind of the vibe I got from this press conference, not to spend a whole lot in terms of outside free agents. After all, the New York Giants have a ton of pending free agents that are currently on the roster. I know they have a lot of cap space, but I think they're going to use the majority of that money for in-house guys. And that's kind of the message that Joe Schoen portrayed. Not to say they're not going to bring in anybody. They're going to have to. You got to fill out the whole roster, but I don't think they're looking to break the bank. I think they're looking to continue to build the culture from within this building and continue to build through, from within the draft. And Shane talked about the value in keeping in-house guys as opposed to bringing outside free agents. But we'll talk about all of that throughout this video. He opened up with like an opening statement, and then the first question, it was this, as you would guess, about Daniel Jones. Do you plan on re-signing quarterback Daniel Jones? Shane, we'd like Daniel to be here again. He said it yesterday. There's a business side to it. We feel like Daniel played well this season. He's done everything that we've asked him to do. Again, there's a business side to it. We haven't went down that road yet. We still have to have our meetings with our staff late in the week, and we'll devise an off-season plan. We haven't had those meetings yet, but we would like to have Daniel Jones back. So it's basically the same answer that Daniel Jones gave. When he was leaving the New York Giants, said he'd like to be back with the New York Giants. That quote later came out, I think, after the video I made yesterday. But he said there's a business to it. And I don't expect either the New York Giants or Daniel Jones to tilt their hand too much. Now, Shane kind of did later in the press conference. You'll see that there. But I don't think either one's going to tilt their hand because they don't want to lose value. The Giants want to get Daniel Jones back with the football team as cheaply as they possibly can. And Daniel Jones wants to make as much as he possibly can. And in the end, they're probably going to meet in the middle. And I still expect him to remain on with the New York Giants. But I think that's why he answered that question the way he did. Did give a little bit more of a hint with Saquon Barkley. You'll see that later as well. Having said that, when did you know you and Dabes came in and had to do your due diligence and see what you had in Daniel Jones and everybody else? When did you make your decision, both of you guys, this guy is our guy to move forward with? This was Shane's answer. I don't know if there was a necessary aha moment or anything like that. We just continued to evaluate him throughout the season and what the coaches were asking him to do. And he was executing the game plans. Dabes and I communicating on a daily basis, not just Dabes and I, but the offensive staff and what they're asking him to do. He continued to improve throughout the season. I don't know the exact date or time when we're like, Daniel's our guy, but we're pleased with how he played this season. So again, not being extremely forthcoming, but he didn't shy away from saying when the question was asked, when did you know he was your guy? He didn't say, we didn't know he was our guy. He kind of said, we at one point we knew he was our guy. I just can't give you the exact date and time. Now, just because he's back in 2023 doesn't necessarily mean, for people listening to this video that they're going to give him a 5-year commitment. This may work out to be a franchise tag. I don't know how this is going to play out. All I can tell you is I think in the end, he will be back with the New York Giants in some way, shape, or form. This is the next question. Obviously, you need a new contract with running back Saquon Barkley. Is that somebody you also would like to keep? And is this franchise tag a possibility? Again, this is a special team to me. It was my first year. We'd like to have all these guys back. I really would. But there's a business side to it. There's rules that you need to operate under in terms of the salary cap. Saquon, he's a good player. He's a great teammate. I loved, past tense, getting to know him this season. He's a guy we would like to have back. It's just, again, we haven't had our end of the season meetings yet. We're less than 48 hours after the game. Everybody is going to step back, take the emotion out of it, evaluate the roster, and then we've got to operate under the salary cap. How are you going to divvy it up? How are we going to create the roster? What are the priority positions? And how are we going to move forward? We would like to have Saquon back if it works out. And he later talks about Saquon in further detail, and I'll get into that as well and break it down. But again, similar to the answer with Daniel Jones, maybe not quite as forthcoming. He came right out and said when asked about Daniel Jones, we want him back. But I'm sure they'd like to have Saquon back, but it has to make sense. After all, the New York Giants have a ton of holes on this roster. You could make a strong argument that the running back position, if it's not the most replaceable position, it's among one of the most replaceable positions on a football team, regardless of how great of a talent Barkley is. He's my favorite player in the team. But at the end of the day, if that's going to take away from us improving things like our offensive line and our defensive line and, our wide receiver, Schoen has to take all of that into account. And I'm sure he will. It's also a strong free agency class at the running back position. So we'll see how that all plays out. I'd love to have Barkley back. Barkley is a great New York Giant, and I know he wants to stay on with the football team. And in the end, I hope it all works out, and I do hope that he's back. Next question. Joe said that he wants Daniel Jones back. Obviously, when he was talking to Dable in this question, obviously you guys have talked about this a lot. Why do you want Daniel back? And why do you think he could take this team to get another trophy for this team? Do you think he can? Dable said, I've said it all year. He's done everything that we've asked him to do as an offensive staff, and he's done a really good job with operating and executing our offense. I think he's made strides in a lot of different areas. Certainly, we can all make strides in more, but he's been a good leader for us. Played the quarterback position well for us. I'm happy we had him. Past tense there when he said had him, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't want him back, but he talked about how good of a job he did. Again, not super forthcoming. Then, how much does it change everything in regards to the team building that you have the quarterback, assuming you're going to re-sign him? So you could tell a lot of these reporters were trying to get them to say that he's definitely coming back when they keep saying, assuming you have the quarterback. This is like the second or third time this has been asked. And you don't have to find a quarterback or draft a quarterback, and you could use these resources elsewhere. Schoen said, I don't think it really changes. It doesn't really change what we were going to do. We've still got to draft well. We want to be in good cap health. We're in a unique situation in that we have some players that are upcoming that were drafted from the previous regime before we came here and played well. Again, it just comes down to how we want to divvy it up. Again, the money and the resources that we have along with the draft, we're still trying to build this thing so we can sustain it. Then, how much does it change everything in regards? Oh, I just read that one. I'm sorry. I pulled that question up twice regarding the quarterback position. Then there was this. But in Buffalo, you had to trade up to get the Buffalo quarterback, Josh Allen, right? So now they're trying to get Joe Schoen to hint that would he consider trading up for a quarterback in the draft. Schoen says every situation is different. I know you want to make parallels with here in Buffalo. We made the playoffs the first year. I mean, every situation is unique and different. There were different factors that played into that. And again, I think Daniel played well enough this year. So right there, he's telling you, I think he played well enough this year for us to bring him back. Talked about at the beginning, he wants to bring him back. And one thing I've learned about Joe Schoen since he's been the New York Giants general manager, he's a pretty straight shooter. You go back to last year during the offseason, everything he said pretty much came to fruition. He said we'd like to have him back. And again, we have some difficult offseason decisions to make and how we're going to go about those. So I look forward to getting to work on that by the end of the week. How close were you with Saquon Barkley in the bye week conversations? How close were you with him? And did you consider yourself close when you had that conversation, talking about the contract we all heard about at the bye week that Schoen and Barkley talked, couldn't come to an agreement? This is what Schoen had to say. We had productive conversations. We were off on the value. Again, we said we'd circle back up at the end of the season and continue those conversations. But that time of year, we weren't really that close, I would think. And reportedly, like I said, I think yesterday, Ian O'Connor, this news came out about 3 or 4 days ago. The dollar amount that was proposed, at least rumored to be proposed, to Saquon Barkley was in the $12 to $12.5 million range. Barkley's come out and said that he's not looking to break the market. Well, I think McCaffrey's the highest paid running back currently, which I believe is a $60 million contract over 4 years or $15 million a year on average. If he doesn't want to set the market, you would think it would fall between $12 million and $15 million annually. The question would be the guaranteed money, and the amount of years that they were willing to put forth. It's entirely possible that the Giants were only willing to offer him 2 years, 25, 2 years, 24, maybe 3 years, 36. Maybe Barkley wants 4 years, 55. So we'll see what happens in the end. But he said they weren't close. So it doesn't sound super encouraging in terms of them being close and, getting a contract on. But we'll see if they can work that out throughout the offseason. Then they asked this. You've seen what a team could do when they bring in top flight wide receiver. You guys did that with Stephon Diggs, again, with his days in Buffalo. And Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts with the Eagles, A.J. Brown. If Daniel Jones is the quarterback, whoever's under center, how much of a priority is it to get a wide receiver that you can continue to the evaluation? When they say the evaluation, I'm assuming they're talking about Daniel Jones, and we all know they need a number one wide receiver. This is what he said. I think we want to continue to build the entire team. Again, I know a number one wide receiver can be important, but there's some number one wide receivers that are home right now, hinting at a guy like Justin Jefferson, perhaps, that they sent home. You could go through the past week, and you could go through a couple of weekends ago in the playoffs. A number one receiver doesn't guarantee you anything. I think it's important that we continue to build the team, and there's multiple positions where we want to upgrade throughout the offseason. So, yeah, I'd love to have a number one wide receiver, but we've got to place value on everything we do. And if it makes sense, that's something we'll look to do. So that's Shane basically saying, yeah, I obviously recognize we could use a number one wide receiver. We need a number one wide receiver, but I'm not going to ignore other needs on this team and force it, meaning that I'm not going to trade. He's probably not going to trade his first round pick for a wide receiver. He's probably not going to reach in the first round for a wide receiver if he feels that there's a linebacker or a defensive tackle or a offensive lineman or whatever that is much higher on his draft board. He's going to take the best available player. He realizes that there's needs all over this team. Trust me, they're going to draft a wide receiver at some point in this draft. The question is, where is it going to be? And they'll probably end up signing a free agent wide receiver or potentially trading for one. It's going to be an interesting offseason. They definitely have to add to the wide receiver room. But like Shane said, he's got to prioritize other positions as well. I mean, our linebacking core, you saw it this past week, was awful. Now that you have the cap space, now that you have a little bit more financial, you're healthier in terms of being, financially healthier, significantly more financially healthy than you were last year. Do you plan on being aggressive in the free agent market? Is that somewhere where you're going to now look to really infuse this roster with talent that way? Shane, we've got some guys that are good players that are current unrestricted free agents. Those are the known commodities in-house that we know intimately from being with them for a year. And we'll see who we want to bring back throughout those meetings and what their market value is going to be based on the analysis. Again, if we can bring somebody of our own back, we will. Mixed with guys outside the building. We'll look at that. Ideally, to me, the known commodities that are good football players that that's going to be our priority first. And then we'll look outside the building if we need to supplement the roster. So he's basically saying, listen, I much prefer to bring back Julian Love as opposed to, bringing in a free agent safety. Same thing for Saquon Barkley, free agent running back. Same for Daniel Jones, free agent quarterback, because they know them inside the building. They know their tendencies. They know the offense. They know the scheme. And that's the right approach. I think the best teams in the NFL do exactly what he said. They keep their good draft picks when it makes sense, when they're able to do so, when the market makes sense, and then they sprinkle in some free agents along the way. So don't expect Joe Schoen to go out there and go on a spending spree, nor should he. He needs to continue to build in-house. So that's basically what he went with, said there. Do you think there's a big gap between the Giants and the two teams that remain standing in the NFC? Of course, the 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, I know Philly more intimately, and yeah, I would say yes. There's a talent gap there that we need to close. And to me, it's the NFC East. I mean, we're 1-5-1, of course, all adding in the playoff game, 1-4-1 in the regular season against the NFC East. If you win the division, the rest takes care of itself. So that's always going to be a goal of ours, to close that gap and the NFC East champs. That's the goal, and that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm going to tell you what, we all watched all those games. We watched both Cowboys games, all three Eagles games. And what stood out to you? What stood out to me? Daniel Jones was pressured like 30 times against the Dallas Cowboys week 3. And he was pressured over 20 times against the Eagles in the first playoff game. So what really stood out to me is our offensive line didn't do much of a job in terms of being able to protect the quarterback. And you would have to think that Joe Schoen is going to continue to try to address that offensive line, being that we've gotten manhandled in the trenches every time we've gone up against those teams. Do you think free agency is more of a tool to build a team than it was maybe 5, 10 years ago? It can be. It can be if you get the right guys and they're durable, because typically when you're signing outside your building, you're paying those guys a little bit of money that if they stay healthy and produce at that level, then yeah, it's definitely a tool that we've used before. Obviously, the draft and develop. Like I was saying earlier, with players in your system already, in your building, you know them. You can't really do a lot of research on some players that are with different teams. Kenny Golladay comes to mind. Nate Solder comes to mind, right? Or you don't know their work ethic or injury history. So again, I think when you're making those financial decisions, you've got intimate knowledge of the players. I think there's less margin for error in-house. So I think he's telling you that he's not going to be looking to bring in a lot of outside free agents. Now, a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who a lot of Giants fans have talked about, he has some knowledge with him, right, from his days with Buffalo. I know a lot of Giants fans are looking at him. Don't know if he's going to be able to fit the budget, but yes, you can make an argument, guys that he's worked with in the past, he's got some knowledge. Next question, is safety Julian Love? I know you're not going to go down the whole list, but he's a guy, culture, you know him. He stayed healthy. He did a lot of different things. Brian Dable said some good things about him. Is he a guy you look at and say, yeah, he's important? Again, we'd like to have a lot of these guys back. It's just as we go through this and we talk to the representatives, he's a guy. I know we mentioned it yesterday that we talked to in the bye week, and we weren't able to get something done with Julian. Julian knows how we feel about him. We had a good exit interview with him yesterday. Again, as we start to get into the offseason planning, we'll talk to the coaches. We'll see where he fits in. And if we can get something done, that'll be good. So again, he's not going to overcommit. And then he talked about that here in this quote. With respect to free agency, how married are you to that you believe a player is worth and walk away number compared to sometimes when you're in negotiations and the market value can exponentially change how much a player is going to get? Perfect example, Christian Kirk, for example, last year. Even though he had a pretty good year, I don't think anybody thought he was going to get $20 million, right? So he's saying you set a price on these players, and if they exceed said price, you walk away. Shane says that's something our staff, they do a great job, and we talk about it all the time. What's the walk away? We come up with a walk away, and you have to be comfortable, because I'll use the term I use around here. If you shop hungry, you overpay. It's a bad deal, and then you get buyer's remorse. It's important in free agency to come up with the proper value where you see them as a staff and value and where it fits into your salary cap and your team. And then I think it's smart to have a walkaway number. So there you go. So don't expect them to overspend, which is a good thing. You shouldn't want your general manager to overspend, especially in the state that the New York Giants currently are in. With all the holes that we have, we can't afford to be overpaying for players and go down the same route as, a guy like Kenny Golladay and Nate Solder and, so many other players in the past under Dave Gettleman and Jerry Reese. So that's good to hear that he's going to set a market for these guys and he's not going to be willing to exceed it. Then finally, a couple more questions, and then I think this is the last bit of questions that I have that I was going to go over with you guys. Do you view Daniel Jones as a quarterback you can help win you a Super Bowl? So basically, they're asking, do you view him as a franchise quarterback? That's what a franchise quarterback is. Shane, we're happy Daniel's going to be here. And that was really the first time he slipped up when answering these questions and at least giving you maybe a hint that they plan on having him back for sure. Take it for what you will. I saw Brian Dable. I think Justin Pennick on Twitter posted the reaction. Brian Dable looked over to him, a bit surprised that he said that. Mainly probably due to the fact that they don't want to lose any kind of leverage. At least that's the way I interpret it. Then he said, we're happy he's going to be here. So he said it twice. Hopefully we can get something done with his representatives, and that would be the goal, to build a team around him where he can lead us to win a Super Bowl. Then he asked this question directly after. You're saying he's going to be here next year. We're going to have the offseason meetings here at the end of the week, and we're going to talk about it. And then with the resources we have, we're going to talk to his representatives and hopefully be able to get something done to go off the first question. And he also talked about, I don't have the quote right there, but he also talked about some of the tools that he could utilize, kind of hinting at the franchise tag, potentially for Barkley or Daniel Jones. And we all know that he has the capabilities of doing that. Jordan Renan posted the estimated price that came out with yesterday was 32.4. According to Jordan Renan, it's 31.7 for the franchise tag. And if somebody were to sign him, we would get 2 first-round picks. It's very possible if they can't work out a deal by the time the franchise tag deadline comes around, they tag Jones as a bargaining chip to be able to negotiate with him exclusively. That way they could try to sign him to an extension, where they don't have to worry about other teams around the league driving up his price. So I think they want to leave that open for the possibility where that comes about, that they need to franchise Jones so they don't have to worry about overpaying him and being able to get him at their value. And worst case scenario, you have a 1-year commitment for $31 million. You make him prove it again, and then you give him a bigger contract thereafter. So I think the Giants have all their ducks in a row. I'm sure, like Shane said, they're going to talk about this in the coming week. And hopefully we get, news on this, within a month or so, hopefully sooner, about Daniel Jones. Because I think once you get the Daniel Jones news, all the other dominoes will kind of fall into place. That's the biggest question mark, because obviously that's the player that's going to cost the most money. He's the quarterback. And his market is going to be right around where that franchise tag is. You have to assume that if you're his agent, that's what you have to come to the New York Giants with, because that's what he's worth, whether you want to believe that or not. Guys like Pat Mahomes are making $50 million starting quarterbacks in today's NFL. Make about $30 million or right around $30 million at a bare minimum. So I think that's what they're going to come with. And hopefully the New York Giants, Jones, could come to some kind of agreement where Shane and Jones feel comfortable. I'm sure Shane doesn't want to overcommit in terms of guaranteed money. That way, if things go south, he has the ability to get out. And he's a guy that seems to be very organized and very diligent in terms of the way that he wants to manage his cap and think about the long-term stability of this franchise. But it definitely seems like he wants Daniel Jones back, especially when I listened to it. Like I said, do yourself a favor if you haven't. Go to the Giants YouTube page, listen to it. That's the vibe that I got. He wants Jones back. I don't know how things are going to work out with Love and Barkley. That I left it a little bit less, convinced that they'll be back. But I'm sure they're going to negotiate. They're going to talk, and hopefully they can bring all these guys back. But unfortunately, like Shane said, there's a salary cap, and the Giants and the players are going to have to try to work things out. We'll have to wait and see how all the building plays out. I'm excited. Like I said, hopefully we get our answer within the next month or so with all these players, so we really know the forward direction of this football team before we start to talk about outside free agents, the draft, and how the Giants are going to build their team in the offseason. But wanted to get a video up for you guys just talking about that. Obviously, that was a big press conference today regarding Shane, Dable, and the future of the New York Giants franchise. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.